So today we're going to be working on this Galaxy A02s. Now the screen is cracked, so we're going to go ahead and repair this and get it looking like nice and new. So to start off, we're going to start by removing the back. Now this phone has a couple of clips just along the side that you can easily remove just with the pry tool. Before you do that though, be sure that you remove the SIM tray along with any other accessory that goes along the outside. So you're going to get your pry tool, go along the edges, and like I said, the screen's just held down by clips, so you don't have to make that much force. Just go all the way around so the screen is able to separate from the back half of the phone. Once you do that, you're able to separate them. Just be very careful because some phones do have ribbon cables that run through the back. As you can see, this one does not, so in this case, we're just able to separate it without having to worry about any wires. So after, as you can see, we're going to remove the top half of the phone right here on the back. There are a couple of screws. Now all these screws are the same size, so you don't have to worry about placing them in the correct order that you're going to be taking them out. You can do so if you want to, but since they're all the same size, you don't have to worry about, okay, I have to organize all these screws and put them back where they go. So once you remove all the screws, you will be able to remove the top plastic on the back of the phone and the bottom lower half. If you yourself have a phone that has a cracked screen, feel free to bring it in. We have 3 stores. We're located in Arizona. Feel free to bring them in. We'll go ahead, we could diagnose them, and we could fix them up for you. If you have any questions, feel free to call and we'll help you out as best as we can. So here we're removing the screws that go along the top portion. There's not that many screws that have to be removed, so you don't have to worry about there being a lot. Alright, once we have all these screws removed, just get your pry tool. You don't have to insert it too much, just the tip would be fine. And then you just pull up on it, and then you're able to remove the plastic that goes along the back. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky, so if you have to use some tweezers, you could do so. And that just comes off like so. We could set that aside, and now as you can see, we have access to the main board of the phone. So here we have a lot of components that are connected. We have your battery that's connected, your LCD that's connected, cameras. Your motherboard is housed on the top portion of your phone, so you might have to be very careful with that portion of your phone. And on the bottom, the piece that we're removing here has the speaker attached to it. Down below also is your charging port along with your vibrator. So we're just going to set those aside because we don't need those for now. Now it's very important that when you disconnect all of your connections, that you disconnect every single one, because if you do accidentally leave one connected, you could risk tearing that connection, and if it is something important, you might mess up the phone. So here we've already gone ahead and disconnected the battery. Next, we're going to disconnect the LCD from the motherboard. Then we could just lift this wire up, and we have more access to the board. So what we're doing next is disconnecting the signal antenna. It runs along the side along a groove of the screen. As you can see here, it's on the right, and it connects down here on the charging port. To remove that, just pry up on the connector that goes connected to the charging port so you're able to set it loose. Be very delicate when you remove these, as if you do damage any of these components, whether it's the charging port board or your motherboard, you're going to risk messing up the phone entirely. So once we have that all removed, set it aside someplace safe. And as you can see here, now we have more access to our vibrator. Here are our volume and power buttons, as well as our ear speaker. And we still have to replace and remove the battery. So as you can see, most screens will come with the smaller components already pre-installed. This one does not, so we're going to have to transfer everything over from the old screen onto the new screen. So to remove the battery, we're just going to heat it up a little bit. And then we're going to use 99% isopropyl alcohol. As you can see, that's what I'm applying here. And you always want to use alcohol when it comes to electronics. If you use water, you're going to risk damaging it. So we're using 99% isopropyl alcohol, so that way it loosens up the adhesive. And then with the extra added heat that we're going to be applying to it, it's not going to be a lot, but it's enough to loosen up the battery, and that way we're able to remove that as well as all the other smaller components. So here we've removed the vibrator. Next, we're going to remove the ear speaker. You have to be very gentle with these as well because you could risk damaging them. And next, we're going to remove this flex cable that is attached to your power button and your volume buttons. All of this can be taken off with just a slight amount of heat. It doesn't have to be too extreme. I recommend using a heating pad instead of a heat gun, because a heating pad disperses all the heat evenly, as opposed to a heat gun that will disperse the heat in just one singular spot, and you could risk melting something, damaging something because of all that heat that's being placed in one spot. So with that little bit of heat, the battery comes out nice and easy. As you can see, you don't have to struggle with it. And here we have our old screen with all the components removed. So now comes the part of putting everything back onto the new screen. So we're going to put everything in the order that we took it out. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but just be sure that you put everything in the order that it's supposed to, or else something might not work afterwards. The good thing about some of these new screens is that they have the adhesive for the battery already pre-installed. As you can see here, we just have to lift up on this blue plastic, and it already has the double-sided adhesive that we can use to glue down the battery. So you just remove that plastic, set the battery down, and then we're going to start by placing back all of our smaller components, like our ear speaker, our vibrator, as well as our volume and power buttons. So like I said, if you do have something similar to this, a phone that has a cracked screen, we have 3 stores throughout the valley. Feel free to make an appointment online. We also accept walk-ins, or if you have any questions regarding any repairs, feel free to give us a call. So we're going to go ahead and place everything back. When it comes to the volume and power buttons, you got to make sure that everything lines up, because if it doesn't, it's not going to work properly. So that also uses a little bit of adhesive on the bottom so it holds on. And once you have all the smaller components put back into place, you can start by putting back your main motherboard. Now be sure that it sits perfectly snug into the grooves that it's supposed to. If it does not, that could mean that either the screen you're using isn't the correct screen that you need, or there might be something that's blocking it. So be sure that everything sits in the place that it's supposed to, that it's not being moved around, or it's not sitting on top of something else. The signal antenna, like I said, runs along the side. There's a groove that's specifically made for it along the side of the screen, so it sits snugly in there. And the charging port board goes snugly on the bottom as well. After that, we're just going to reconnect everything. Be sure that you do feel a click or hear a small click when you do put everything back. If not, then you might not be connecting it like it's supposed to. And after, we're just going to put the lower piece, the plastic piece that contains our bottom speaker, and the top plastic that contains our camera lens. Those are held on by clips, so just be sure that you hear a click and feel it click, and you'll know that it's sitting in place. And afterwards, be sure that you put on all of your screws. Like I mentioned before, the screws aren't in any specific size. They're all the same size. You don't have to put them in any order that you don't want to. If you just want to set them aside like we did, you can do so. But you're not going to get affected by them being put in random places that they didn't go into. And so be sure to put these screws on. Now, we do also have the option, if you don't live in Arizona, we do also have the option that you can mail in the phone to us and we can repair it for you. So if you are interested, feel free to visit our website. We have all the information needed there for you to do the repair. You just simply mail the phone in, we repair it, and we send it back within a 24-hour period. So before we close the phone up entirely, we're just going to test it out to make sure that everything is functioning. As you can see, the power button is working and the screen is turning on, and it seems to be working fine. So all you have to do now is just line up the back cover and put a little bit of pressure onto the sides to make sure that it clips down. And once you do that throughout the entirety of the side, you're going to be able to reinsert your SIM tray along with your SIM card or SD card. If you did have one, you're able to reinsert that back, and that's it. And as you can see, the phone is looking in much better condition than it was when it first arrived. Would you look at that? This was just another repair with your friends here at T&E Repair.